choosing us to do that. And so, Lord, we just commit this time to you tonight. We thank you, Lord, that you loved us enough that you allowed us to come together so we can learn even more about perfecting those gifts that we have, and that we would be able to offer them not just to you, Lord God, but because that's the most important part, but that we would be able to do so to where it's presented to your people in an excellent manner. Lord, your word tells us, God, that you look at our hearts, God, but man judges the outside of our of who we are. And so, Father, we know that with that, that means that we need to make sure that what we're doing is not a distraction for your people. And so, Father, we thank you for this time that we get together. I pray, God, that you would bless my brothers as they have sacrificed their time to be here tonight. We love you and we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. 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 All right. So really quick, I'm going to ask, there's Josh Mag. I'm going to bring him forward. Let me see. On my screen, I'm just going to go in order of who y'all are on my screen. So there's Anthony Jenkins and Ed Anderson and Mag Tynes, who is here as well. And so I have had the privilege of serving with all of these guys for many years. I think Ed probably the longest that we've served together. And then Mag and I have been working with WLA for many years. And then Anthony and I for the last 7 years, I can't even believe it's been 7 years. That's just crazy. But at any rate, Anthony, would you introduce yourself and say hello to the people?
Hello, everybody. Hello. So, yes, as LaRue stated, my name I'm Anthony Jenkins. To just a little bit about myself, I am the worship arts and media director at the River of Life Christian Center. Currently, right now, I've been at that, mainly just over worship and arts at the River of Life for the last 13 years. Wow.
That's a long time.
13 years, yeah. 2006 is when I came to Orlando, Florida. And I tell you, I've learned a lot through those times and over those years. And more recently, over the last year, maybe half year, I've started to work heavily with the technical department side of things, and which is now has been handed to me to be over that ministry as well at the River. Before that, now I'm on stage, I'm leading worship, I'm behind the scenes. But before that, I am a classically trained pianist. I've been playing the piano for a long time, since I was 5, but I started out reading music. I got into gospel music around the age of 20, when I was about 19 years old when I got to college. But then God just took me from there. And here I am today, willing and openly ready to pour into whoever God places in front of me, which is you all this evening, to just share all the knowledge and all the information that I've learned over these past 15, 16 years. So this is where I am. Before I came to the River, I was actually the organist at Faith Center down in South Florida, where Bishop Fernandez is. And before that, just in Tallahassee. So that's pretty much my story in a wound up way.
I always say that Anthony is my boss, because I know people for a long time would think, well, that I was the worship arts director, but I am not. I'm over the worship department under Anthony. So that's how our department, our ministry is set up, right?
Yes. Do I have time to tell the story about how this
Yeah,
all?
sure. Yeah, you can do
So
that.
the crazy thing, I remember it was about 2012. LaRue came to the ministry, and we were beginning to transition into the new building. Pastor gave me a call. He said, "Hey, Anthony, I wanted to bring LaRue Howard on to be with you at the choir and work over the choir. How do you feel?" And I said, "I think that is the best decision that he's made that year," which was earlier in the year. I know from a position where I am, and which is important as a leader, to know when to release something. You know, so many times, so many leaders can hold on to something for so long that they can miss the blessing, and they wouldn't, they won't allow the space, allow that ministry to grow, because for whatever reason, egos get in the way, a whole lot of other stuff. It just taints stuff, But for me personally, that's probably the first number one the biggest decision, best decision I've made at the church, that by not rejecting or fighting against pastor or even causing or whatever with me and LaRue. It's just walk right in, and it's been amazing ever since. We became brother and sister. So
it's definitely been a blessing. Definitely been a blessing. And then we have Brother Ed Anderson. Say hello to the people. Introduce yourself. Unmute yourself. There you go. There you go.
Hello, people. How y'all doing? I'm Ed Anderson. I am the band director at the River of Life Christian Center of Orlando, Florida, where I serve proudly underneath Minister LaRue Howard and Minister Anthony Jenkins. I've been band directing at the River. I've been at the River since 2012 as well. So we're coming up on 8 years later on this year. And before that, I was serving as band director and then also as a keyboard player at Faith World for a while with Pastor Clint Brown. And then before that, I was in college. I started playing keys at 15, I think it was, and just really just through a lot of prayer and a lot of listening, the Lord blessed me to be able to pick it up and kind of learn from there and just be able to listen to a lot of people. And, God has taken me on this incredible journey. I never thought I would be here, because I surely thought I was going to be a doctor, but I am not. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I truly believe I'm operating in my gift and my calling, which is to serve the people of God. And through music, that's what I do. I also have my own production company where I, am able to help people to release what God has put in them to the world through music, through developing their sound, developing their songs, consulting, and all of the above. So that's me.
That's so great. What I love about all of these guys really is that, even though they start in one area of ministry or music ministry, they are all lifelong learners, and, we should all be, but they have grown to not just perfect the gift in the area that they started serving in, but they have also proven themselves in other area of ministries. And so I'm just really, really thankful for them sharing tonight. And Brother Mag Tynes.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
So Josh Magtynes is the official, I guess you could say, title or name. My journey probably started back kind of like Anthony. When you're young, you start banging on things and figuring out about sound and audio. Got into mixing more so because I had my own music that I was dealing with, but eventually learned and realized that was actually a little deeper of my talents. So started off in entertainment, studio, or recording from that aspect of it, going into house of worship sound and corporate AV sound. Been on media teams, ministry teams, assistant media director type of position. Outside of that, I've got contracts in Orlando since I'm self-employed. Magnificent Productions is my company. That's where you get part of the MAG from. Just been serving inside of church, outside of church for many years now. My main focus is to assist and enable people that are inside the body, build up that body without having to go outside and compromise the talent that they go to get, or even lose focus of what the real objective is inside the church.
I love that, and so many times as ministries, we try to add to our areas, our church. And just like you said, we have to go outside and get outside talent that may not be believers, or they don't understand church. And so, so grateful that you offer that service for many ministries. I know that there have been a couple of ministries that I know personally that have reached out to you about coming and offer your consulting services and
Right.
helping them grow their ministry and grow the equipment that they have. So it's so great that you're doing that. So let's just jump right in. I have a couple of questions that were submitted. So just right off the bat, let me a practical question. What are some ways practical ways that you would suggest that a ministry could grow their team, whether it's an AV team or their band? What are some practical ways? There's so many churches that are looking for band members, worship leaders too, but band members are hard to come across, and as well as a good sound person. Like, what are some practical ways to grow that area of ministry?
So yeah, we touched on this. I think the last time we were on, but it also, there's many ways to do it, right? But you also have to know your audience. I think that's another thing we have to keep in mind. Who's the demographic that you're really trying to connect to? And I don't mean to try to exclude anyone. That's not what I'm saying. Just understand that, is it mainly a big 20 to 25 range? Are you trying to get high school students involved, trying to get adults involved? We start with a plan, you know what I mean? Like older adults, if you're going to reach out to them, they're not going to be necessarily ignited to jump in and serve by the same things like some 20 and youngers might be interested in. We're going to go play laser tag, and anybody interested in the AV ministry come play. Well, you might not get everybody that wants to play, So what I would do is first off set a plan of who you want to attract and the type of heart you want to get, and then just go learn people and get relationships with people. One pet peeve of mine, and people don't mean anything by it necessarily, but a lot of times when we serve, we can be selfish. So here's what I mean. I'll give you my own personal example. As many of you know, ruptured my Achilles tendon not too long ago. So while I'm on crutches going to church, you've got some greeters that they're not really looking at you. They're not connecting with you. They just have this paragraph in their head that they want to say and something they want to do before really learning you. So I'm walking or I'm hobbling through, and the person tells me this paragraph, pats me on the shoulder, and this is while it's new, the crutches. So I'm trying not to fall over, and you meant well, but you really didn't connect with me on the level of what I needed. So when you're going out to get AV, band, whatever people, find out what they're about first, instead of just, hey, you want to serve? Hey, can you sing? Come join the team. Just find out where they're at and what they need first.
That's so good. They didn't connect on the level of the thing that you needed. They were just so focused on getting through their spiel of what they were told that they were supposed to say without being genuine and having that connection.
Right.
Yeah, to follow up with that, it's almost like, sometimes people can get caught up in the quantity of people instead of the quality. With tech, it's a little different, because I just can't go pull people. Hey, I need you to run sound, and it's like, well, I have a hearing aid. I can't hear. You know what I mean? So that has happened before. I promise you. There was a sound guy, who he couldn't hear. He straight told me, I'm half deaf. And I was like, oh man, maybe we should find something else. This is, I ain't gonna throw nobody, but anyway,
Lights,
but just,
video.
It's very important to contact to just get to know the people and find out where they are, find out their weaknesses, to develop those weaknesses, and find out their strengths to grow those strengths, and it really puts you in the position for people to want to serve with you, because they find out that you care about them. When you create that community, when you create that relationship, it's easy for people to say, as a matter of fact, let's just say, instead of growing your team, let's maintain the team that you have. You know what I mean? And grow. What do you have in your cup right now? How are you growing them? Because once you're responsible over that little, then God will bless you with the more. So just make sure that we're not overlooking the team that you have now. Find out the best ways that you can grow them. Find out the best ways you can connect with them. I tell some people, it's easy, especially with Planning Center or scheduling people or emailing, asking someone to come out. It's the best part about developing a relationship with people, it makes it harder for them to tell you no. It's like, I want to please them so much. Oh, she prayed for me last week. Oh, she asked me to serve with you. I don't want to be like, no, I don't want to. I don't know. It'll be hard. They will feel pulled to it, because God is he's worked on their heart, believe it or not, by you by you tending to their needs, and being there for them, that's, you know, you don't realize it, but God is working on their heart for you and for the ministry, and in turn for him, you know, and then they will want to in turn do whatever they can to grow the ministry, grow God's kingdom, and just, it really makes life easier for you as a leader, or as, you know, the department head over that particular ministry. So that is one of the big things, you know, just communicating with the people, developing the people, and being genuine. Totally genuine.
That's so good. It just reminded me about something that Todd Galbraith said last year, that, you know, for us, you have to, what are you doing with what's in your hand while you're waiting on God to bring you that thing that you're believing for, that thing that you're working hard for, that thing that you're having faith for? How are you maintaining what you have currently? And so that's so good. Both of you kind of said the same thing, but, you know, being genuine with the people that you're bringing on board, the people that you have on board, getting to know them, which kind of leads me to another question. Something I thought of earlier was, you know, developing relationship and communication. Talk a little bit more, like go a little bit more as to why that's important to develop relationship, more so not just with your choir and praise team, but with your band and your AV. Because I don't know, I don't want to come off the wrong, you know, sound wrong by saying this, but I feel like it's a different animal. You know, when you're dealing with your band, you're dealing with AV, you're dealing with choir, it's like different types of people.
Different demographic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So relationships, developing that.
It's really just finding out where the people are at, what interests them. It's almost like being a detective. Like, was it Mr. Magoo? Was that Mr. Magoo? One of those detective guys back in the day. They were kind of silly, but you really got to find out what motivates them, where they're at, where they're struggling in life. Because at the end of the day, like now, which is a perfect example, all the expensive equipment really doesn't matter. Like, you can't even be in the building to use it. So at the end of the day, it's all ministry, it's discipleship. What I do is I just find out what you got going on. You got kids, where you from, what do you like to do, what's your talent, and I use that AV bridge as a means to discipling, whether it's they're sharpening my iron, I'm sharpening them. You just got to slow down and actually take time to talk to people and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, agreed. I think one of the things that people we tend to forget the most, is the fact that the church isn't the building and it's not the gear, it's the people. And if you're not building the relationships and building the assets, being the people, then without the people, you don't have anything and your church doesn't function. So I'm really big on building relationships, you know, checking in on the guys, finding out where everybody's at, what they're doing, just because, and having relationship, you know, and dealing with things that have nothing to do with church as well. Because, you know, outside of church, like before we come to church, we're still people, like, you know what I mean? And the same things, the problems and issues that people deal with in their home life come to church with them, you know what I mean? And it's hard to minister together if you can't be able to comfort and empower and encourage people outside of that. You know, as musicians, everything that we're dealing with, everything we're thinking, everything we're feeling gets translated and gets broadcasted when we play. So, you know, having those checks and those post checks with you know, the band members and the team to make sure that everybody's good so that we can be the most effective in our ministry that we can is very important.
One of the things, Anthony, hold on one thing, but Ed, you have done such an incredible job at building this camaraderie and this brotherhood almost with the band there, that, you know, it's so evident when you guys play, just y'all, like when you just, because sometimes we'll just, you know, at the end of service, we'll just have you guys play, and it's so evident of the relationship that you guys have there. And I know you talked a little bit about that just in your response, but can you just give me a little bit more ideas? Like, what do you do? What, you know, how have you built that camaraderie, that trust with them?
For me, The way that I approach directing the band is that everybody has something to bring to the table. And so I find the value in everyone. Everybody's got something to bring. Everyone has an idea. Everybody has, something to offer. And when you make people feel like they're valuable and like they have something to contribute, it builds the morale and the camaraderie within the team, you know? And so in doing that, like when we're in the band setting on on the bandstand, when we're rehearsing, I'm open to suggestion and taking suggestions from everyone because I want everybody to feel like they're included and involved. Outside of church, it's the same way. Like I make sure like we try to hang out together when we can, I'll meet up with the drummer and his wife, or I'll, sit down and go have coffee or something with the bass player and his wife and whoever, what I mean, to make people feel valued. I want to make sure that people know and understand that they are valued, because when they feel valued and they feel like they're a part of something, then everybody's willing to contribute that much more. And because of that, we've been able to build a great relationship outside of church, but those relationships that we've grown outside of church reflect and they are evident when we sit down to play together. And so that's just kind of how I approach it, doing everything I can to make people feel valued and feel like they're important, feel like they're appreciated, because people are way more willing to give and serve and to put forth their best effort when they feel that value and that appreciation. And you do that by building relationships.
Anthony?
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, I was gonna say, the same, just, being able to making yourself available, whether it's through training of your people, empowering your people, delegating, giving them responsibilities, and just walking in meekness, humility, and trusting them and being vulnerable. All of that says, hey, I need you. You know what I mean? Not this gonna happen with or without you, because you see those videos whether the choir director or the tech director or whoever it is like, y'all need to get this together, and singling them out, making them feel like only I know everything. One of the biggest things, and Ed just said it, what do you think? I promise you, those 3 words will go so far with your team. If it's just like, hey, what do you think? But it comes from a place of true, like a vulnerable place. Don't let people make you think that when meekness is weakness. You know what I mean? Because it isn't. You know what I mean? You're true, and you be sure in yourself, but trust your people. Trust that God has sent these people to be a help for you. And that's where the quality comes in over the quantity. Because if you're just getting people, then yeah, you might have a few weeds in there that's like, oh, I'm gonna take this over, whatever the case is. But when you really put your heart into it, and you really just pour your heart out into these people, they will in turn respond and will feel a part of the ministry.
Yeah, Lisa said something about that. She shared a little bit about that as well last week when we were talking about being with your team and having those open conversations, those open dialogues with your team, which it's really a hard time right now with us, many ministries, all of us not being able to meet with our local team body that we're used to doing that. What are some ways that you guys have stayed in contact, or that you're maintaining that relationship during this time of social distancing?
For me, Zoom. This here is one way. We have GroupMe. As you know, GroupMe is a great way to send text messages and to just share, whether it's a Facebook page. Also, I have other groups that I'm a part of. We use Marco Polo. It's a video chat thing, just like, hey, checking in on you guys. And however, using just this technology, it's there. Now, if the internet goes out, I'll defer the question to probably Ed or Mag, because I don't know what to do. But right now, just try to find every way and technology that I can to just reach out to people.
Go ahead.
I think for me, it doesn't matter what platform you use. It's the intentionality behind it. Don't just hit somebody up just for sake of hitting them up. Like when you have these conversations, make them feel like it's like you really want to talk to them. Like make them feel important. You know what I mean? And be intentional about it. I mean, obviously, we're not able to meet up physically in person. Most people aren't able to meet up physically in person, but utilizing whatever platform you have, whether it be Zoom or the internet. For me, I really like seeing people's faces. So that's a thing for me. Like I can only deal with so many text messages until I'm like, all right, let me hit you on Zoom or WhatsApp or send you a video or something. I need to see your face. You know what I mean? Because it's so much more personal. It's engaging. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at. I try to be very intentional about making sure that I'm, trying to hold it together, and see people's face.
And I knew I kind of threw that question out there. That wasn't part of what we were going to talk about today.
So that's fine.
So let me jump into this other elephant that's in the room here, with online services and streaming. I know for our ministry, it's a huge stretch for us. Well, I say a huge stretch. It's probably more of a stretch for some other ministries. But what's y'all's take on the position or the condition of church now, online streaming services? What's your take on that?
It's kind of funny to me, because for years, in a sense, people have been saying, hey, it's coming. It's almost like 5G, or hey, you're going to have to get rid of all of your 600 megahertz bandwidth microphones. It's coming. And now you get smacked in the face with a situation where you can't just, we'll do that later. We don't need that. Everybody is bombarding servers right now. And even some of these copyright companies licensing is like, we can't keep up. And just a few small things that people like to overlook or forget sometimes, it creates this jam kind of on I-4 type of deal.
Yeah. So how do we make it work?
I think you eat the elephant one bite at a time. I mean, you can't time travel back in time to fix anything, and we just got to be humble and not try to compare our stuff to someone else's because theirs is brighter or they've got 4K and it streams better. Well, if you're not there, you're not there. Like, what do you have in your hand? Do the best you can with what you got, as long as it's not a distraction and it's not really, really poor quality that you're just sitting on and you're trying to get better. You do the best you can. You find, I mean, it's all about the message to me. Find the platform. There's one church that we visit. They don't have streaming. They record the audio and post it as a podcast. That's fine too. Instead of, because I've also seen churches try to do too much too fast, and it creates just this really disruptive and rather disturbing visual and audio experience. Do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah, it's good you said about the podcast, because there are some churches, a lot of people are doing the Facebook Live, and there are a lot of people that don't have Facebook, don't use Facebook, so they're using Zoom again, but the audio portion of it, where their members are just calling in and listening to the sermon and to the worship and to whatever is going on. There are so many ways to do it that doesn't have to break your pocket. There's OBS, which is a free hosting network situation for
Open
live
Broadcast Systems, for those of you who don't know what OBS stands for.
Yeah, it's say, what is it? I forget.
Open Broadcast Systems.
Yeah.
Open Broadcast Systems.
Open Broadcast Systems, and it's free. And then they have more other things like Wirecast or that is that's a paid, you pay for it. It's a little more secure. You can do a little more things. They have things like Ecamm Live, another paid thing that you can use as well. But it can be as simple as podcasting. It can be as simple as a Zoom call where people can just call in. But the most important thing is to do what is best for your ministry at this time.
I agree completely. I think one of my biggest life guidelines, I'll say, like one of the biggest things that I think about, values in my life, is how can I be the most effective with what I have? How can I be the most effective? Would you rather shoot 100 shots and hit a bullseye 100 times, or shoot 1,000 shots and hit the bullseye 100 times? For me, because I'm trying to be effective and efficient, I'd rather zero in on what I'm trying to hit and hit it, and present it the best way possible to be the most efficient. So if you're most efficient and most effective for the congregation you have is to be streaming on Facebook, then do that, at the best level of your ability. But if it's, for your congregation, if it's just you being on Zoom with an iPhone and you're have it on a little small tripod and broadcasting because you're the people who are watching, this is the platform they like to use, and you can do that effectively and efficiently, then do that. Like Mag was saying, don't get caught up in the comparisons of who has what, who's doing what, where, when, how. But what can you use that you have that's going to cause you to be the most efficient and most effective with the resources and time that you have? Because the standard of excellence is set by us. It's whatever we set our standard of excellence as, you know what I mean? And then if we reach that standard, then we can always raise it, but only do what you can do to the level that you're able to be excellent and effective with that, and then go from there.
And let me chime back in too. All of that is like, it's like we're three heads of one body. So it's really cool. Almost like listening to yourself speak, but sometimes like what Anthony touched on earlier, you can't miss the moment. Like maybe this is also time for us to chill out and pause on doing so much. There's a lot of AV tech people that serve every single Sunday, maybe Wednesday, and they might just serve too much and never unplug. They think they're okay, because I've been in that situation before. You think you're okay and you continue on, don't realize you're starving. Like you're almost dead and you're starving. You've been going on with routine, you've been hearing it, but you haven't really been processing anything for nutrition. So now is also a time to recognize, hey, maybe like a video I posted on Facebook, maybe it's time for a house church. Maybe it's time to say, hey, what's up to my neighbor, and be aware of your situation. Sometimes when you're, it's hard to kick against the goad, isn't it? When Jesus is talking to Paul, it's like, sometimes it's difficult because you ain't supposed to be there right now. Not just because you're supposed to fight harder to get to it. It might be difficult because you might need to take a 30-day pause and look at your neighbor for a change. You know what I mean? But with all tech in mind, continue for excellence, but be aware and sensitive to where God is calling you to be in that one moment.
That's so good, Mag. That's so good. Wow. That's a big paradigm shift right there. Because we do, and not just in AV, but ministry period. We go so much, go so much that now that we are having to stop and do something else, it's like, whoa, what do I do? So that's really good. We're having to look at church, not just service, our technical services, but how we serve the body. We're having to look at it at a different perspective now. Anybody else want to speak towards that? If not, we can keep going.
I'll just say, I saw a meme that said something like that. It was a meme. It said, now that I've taken away your sporting events, your concerts, some of you have to stay home now. You can't go outside, can't go to the shopping, you can't go to the mall, you can't go to the movies. Can you talk to me now? And it's like, God, And it really does make you sit back and say, you know, all things work in his timing. And God could have us in this place of uncomfortability to birth something greater out of all of us. It's just right before the when the seed is in the ground, it breaks right before it sprouts, you know. So we're all in this uncomfortable position or place together, but there's something in this weight, and it's just up to each of us to find where that is, you know, and just really, number one, seek God, look to him, and just and pray, and continue to move and continue to go forward.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. Um, all right, so let's get back to that was okay. Let's get back to just what we were talking about. Though, what are some ways so that we can enhance this streaming and this online services that are taking place? What are some ways that we can make sure that what we are presenting? I know Ed said that we set our own level of excellence. If we recognize that we've achieved this goal, then what are some of the ways that we can push to go higher?
So I guess I'll jump off first. To just some practical things once you've gotten, whether it's let's just start with your iPhone. So say you're streaming.
Wait, why can't be an Android? Why has it got to be an iPhone? Okay, I'm just saying.
Androids too. I prefer first get your iPhone first, and then you'll be in the will of God. I'm just kidding.
Continual fight.
I think I'm the only one that has an iPhone here. I think everybody is. So what's an Android? So the first thing you can do, this iPhone or the Androids, they shoot very well. But a lot of times we talk on our phone and then we'll stream with this side. So what's happening? Your camera here is smudged because you usually talk like this. So we might not even all it takes is a little napkin and just wipe it down to get rid of the smudge. So your people don't see it look like, how am I look? Are they cloudy? You know, are they in the clouds? Are they in the sky? No, they're in the living room. All they have to do is just wipe. All you got to do is just wipe a little bit. And then some other things. You don't necessarily have to have like lighting or anything like that. So say, all right, I want to do this live. I'm going to do it next to a window so that I'm people can see me very well. You know what I mean? Just doing little strategic things. And like us here, there's some that we have lights on, you know, and just turning the light on here or there and just kind of positioning yourself so people have something they can see. And I think those are like really small things that you can do that is that won't cost you anything. It's just like, all right, let me just make the experience better for what I have for them, you know. That's just my thought.
Ed, Mag?
Go ahead, Mac. You the sound guy.
Okay. Things that we can do to enhance. I'm a very Karate Kid, free throw shooting mentality type of person, and I've spoken that with you some years ago, but I'll refresh it for the audience. When things start messing up, let's say I'm playing basketball, which hasn't been for a while. Let's say I'm playing basketball and my shot is off. Something I learned very young is go back to shooting free throws. Shoot free throws. Then maybe I do my layup drill and I move out a little bit. Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, the most simplest of what we can do, and you build from there. I say all of that to say, what's the beginning of any type of live stream? The thing that we forget technology, forget all of, or like our recording devices, bandwidth is so important. So if you have a nice phone, but let's say you're not connected to Wi-Fi and you're just running some LTE and keep cutting in and out, you got to make sure you've got the accurate and appropriate bandwidth, meaning you've got enough width right here for video and audio to stream and probably get some signal back, because that's not the only thing that you're doing. Start with your bandwidth. Make sure you know what you have. Right now, I think I've got about 100 megabits per second, which is plenty good, and I'm on a hard line, so I know that that's not most likely not going to get interrupted. As a physical connection from the router to my computer, it's not Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is not as dependable as people may like to believe it is, nor should it be. It's a wireless connection. You want to be hardlining if you can. That's optimal. Then you want to make sure you've also got enough bandwidth to support that. Do some test runs before you go live. because technology always changes. People find ways to adapt other things to other things. Bandwidth, hardline, wireless is okay, but you really want to test it and go from there and just start building.
Let me just interject really quick here. I did not connect my hardwire since he said that, because this is the first time of all these weeks. I'm just going to connect my Wi-Fi, my router, because yes, thank you. Of all the weeks to not have my router connected.
And let me be a little more specific. Your download speed, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter as much as your upload speed. So when I say bandwidth, I'm mainly focusing on your upload speed.
Thank you, Meg. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah. All those things are really great. And I think we all kind of talked. They both kind of talked about from the individual standpoint. So that'd be like if you were wanting to be in a room by yourself and you want to have a little worship session, or you were, somewhere and, you just want to show what was happening at this gathering or at this church and whatnot, which is great. So all those things are in place. So now let's scale it up a little bit. If you are, I've seen some churches do this, like right now in this particular Corona situation, where they have a skeleton crew that goes to the church and they have services with no one in the congregation, no one in the pews. And when you're trying to do things, it's great to be able to break it down to the essentials of what you need. So if you're already a church that's set up for streaming, don't try to come in with 19 cameras. Just use one or use two. Like, what's the least amount that you can do with the highest quality? Like, because if you focus on your quality and your effectiveness, that kind of thing always makes a difference. Also, my biggest pet peeve with streaming stuff is always audio quality, because faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God, but faith comes by hearing. So if you can't hear, or if it's distorted, or if it's garbled, or I can't get no faith because I can't hear clearly what you're talking about. You see what I'm saying? So making sure, like, if you're in a position where if you're broadcasting with a cell phone, just, at some event or whatnot, making sure that your audio quality is, decent, up to par, so where people can actually hear intelligibly what you're saying, so that the word of God can penetrate them. That's probably my biggest pet peeve of all with streaming, because I can listen to a sermon without seeing it, with no video, but if the audio is trash, man, I'm like, next. So
let me ask a question here. What if, because we have mainly worship leaders and musicians here, what if, though, you recognize that, but your pastor does not fully, not just agree, but just like it's not important to them? How do you communicate that in a way to your leadership to help them to understand that there's some, not just in this situation, but just the sound overall, or your AV overall?
For me, if I were to have that conversation, I like to ask people what their preference is based on who they are, what they listen to. So like, if I go to you and get in your car, is your bass turned all the way up, or is your treble turned all the way up? Because if that's what you're used to, then it's like, all right, now I can address things from where you are, and I can then have a conversation with you saying, okay, for the broad spectrum of things, this is more kind of like an even way to where we can be the most presentable to the most people. Because again, the object is to be effective in ministry. It's not just to be out there. You know what I mean? Also, being able to don't just go in without suggestions. Like, don't just go in complaining like, this sucks. Well, I mean, we gotta be solution oriented, so have options and have suggestions of ways that we can help improve. Because all in all, every pastor that really is called by God to do what he does, they're always concerned about how can I grow? How can I reach more? How can I do more? How can we be more effective? How can we reach more people? Well, if this is an area that you can suggest to help reach more people, then it's an area that's worth exploring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I piggy off of that too. Having that conversation with your pastor. How do you want it? How do you want it to be? What is it that you want to see? But just like, Ed just said, have those suggestions, because the pastor, yes, sometimes people can fall into a situation where they only do what the pastor says. It's like, I'm not going to move unless he tells me to move. I'm not going to do anything unless he tells me to do anything. But we were placed there. If you're a department leader, if you're a worship leader, wherever you are, you were placed there to lead because they trust your expertise. They trust what God has given you. So they need you to help them see it, so it's really up to us to show him, whether it's a video that I send to the pastor or an email that I send to him and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because sometimes it's needed for us to help jog his mind to say, oh, you know what? I do like that. Or he might say, you know what? I don't like that, but I like this. At least now we're getting something instead of just laying dormant and, he doesn't care if the audio is bad. No one's saying anything. He ain't say nothing about it. So I'm not going to say nothing about it, but it's like, hey, have you thought about what are they doing? What do you think they're doing over at this, why it sounds so clean and crisp? He was like, you know what? Find out. Now I've been empowered to go and do it. So now I'm finding out here, this is what I found out. Oh, this is great. Thank you. Now you feel better about what you're doing because you've helped the situation. Pastor's feeling good. Now you getting it done. Now everybody's feeling good. The ministry's feeling good and the oil is just flowing.
Yeah, everything they said, co-sign. I would also add to that, just be open to being wrong and be open to having your suggestion delayed sometime for a couple years, because what you're really dealing with is a leadership relationship, and leaders always get information brought to them, and most times most information they get isn't acted upon quickly. That's kind of why they're in that position. They don't usually jump at everything. So you might have to sit on it for 3 months or maybe 3 years and say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I wonder who told you to do that. But you got to be patient and humble through that process sometimes. But everything they said, 100%, just also be open to not having the best solution. Even though you think is the best, they may wait, and then something better comes along 2 months down the road that does the same thing you wanted to do. It just wasn't your idea.
Okay, when all of this is over and we are back worshiping together and connecting with our ministries again, what do you think what effect do you think that this will have on the way that we use technology in church? Or what are some ways that you would like to see maybe, let me just leave it at that. What are some ways that you think this will affect the way that we use technology during our services or just within our churches?
I think it's been a great punch in the mouth, truthfully. No, it's like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, that old boxing saying. It's been one of those things that's been like, whoa, now they stumble a little bit. I guess I do need to step up my streaming. I guess I do need some better lighting. So I think it's going to do two things. There's always good and negatives. The negative is we've just flooded the market with everybody and their mama streaming, and not every message needs to be streamed. You know what I mean? From content and heart standpoint or whatever, we've already reached the streaming age with TikTok and YouTube, and everybody's streaming. So it's going to flood the market in a sense with a lot more faces. However, it has brought attention to the need to step your game up when it comes to preparation for content, preparation for being flexible if certain things go down.
Next, Ed, Anthony.
Oh, I was gonna let Ant talk. Go ahead, bro. Got it.
Well, you're saying how would I mean, just what Mag said. I mean, it did catch a lot of people on their heels, but I think as far as I've seen for this past Sunday, I've been to 5 different churches. So everybody, they found something. They found a way. There's a will. There was a way. But I've also seen a lot of individuals do go live. You know what I mean? And it kind of just goes to, Ephesians 4, and it's kind of our vision statement. It was he who gave some to be apostles, pastors, teachers, to equip us to be the church. You know what I mean? For the perfecting of the saints, to build up the church. And the church not necessarily being the building, but the church being us. So people are using the equipping that they've learned from their pastors, from their teachers, from evangelists, and now they're you know what, I'm gonna step out in faith and I'm gonna go live and share what I've learned. And this is us just building up the church, because we just have to believe and know that God has been perfecting us and equipping us for such a time as this to be able to step out. I joke around with my wife, but I truly believe that there are some people after this that are not going to go back to their jobs that might, I feel like I've been called to do this, or I'm going to write this book. I'm going to just go ahead and finish this book I started writing during this time. But there a lot of things will change. And it's just like one of the churches I went to, the pastor, Michael Todd, he talked about the church being an organism and not an organization, actually. So we are the organisms of that church, and the church is in us. And he was just talking about how people just start to now go out. It's up to us. Now it's up to us, whether it is the streaming church, but it's not just on the pastors, not just on the streaming church. It's on us as individuals to get out, to reach people through whatever form of technology we have, which is how we're doing it now, because we're not socially contacting for the most part. But it is a lot of FaceTime call. It is a lot of Zoom call, or Marco Polo calls, or whatever platform you would use. So things will be different, but I believe, that it will be different for the better for a lot of people, just for those that know that it's going to work out because they're called according to his purpose,
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I think coming out of this whole season, some things that I personally will be, kind of keep being more aware of. Number one is always the importance of having a plan and not being the smartest person in the room, but being able to gather people together that can help you come up with and develop plans that will be beneficial to everyone, and being able to understand other people's perspectives. I think also I think this season will help churches learn to become more progressive and adaptable. Because in all of this, the whole digital media age and streaming and what we're doing right now, having, being able to see, different churches all over the country all in the same day without leaving the couch, is completely foreign and different from the way church existed 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You know what I mean? And it just goes to show that the message hasn't changed, but the method has. The method is constantly changing. And if you're going to be fishers of men, you have to understand what kind of bait, what timing, what kind of route, where you want to place stuff. You have to understand how to be accessible to people if you want people to access you. You know what I mean? And so I feel like this season, I would hope that, churches, focus even more on being creative. They don't lose the creativity that we all have had to tap into in this season where we couldn't do things like we normally used to do. You know what I mean? Because being able to adapt and continue to grow, like what do you do with all the people who joined your virtual church when you start going back and meeting in a building? You know what I mean? Like, do you now cut all those people off, or how do you keep them engaged? And that's going to take some teamwork, some planning, and being creative to make sure that you're still able to deliver the message the right way, deliver the effective message of the gospel, but making sure you can do it in a method that's going to be the most effective and efficient and reach the people.
Yeah, that's really good. I just I just thought about even our pastor said today or a couple of days ago that this is the most that he's ever connected with other pastors outside of, or just other pastors nationally and internationally, but just how cool it is that we're having to reach outside of our normal comfort zones, to grow more and to have more understanding, more ideas. And you're right. When we get back to where we're meeting together, how are we going to maintain those connections with those members that we've gained? Not necessarily members that we've gained, but those connections that we've made on the internet. And I also, it just makes me think about, how for so long churches have just been like, oh, these are my members and those are my members. And no, it's going to do away with all of that to where we're all a part of the body and we're all one church. So that I think, like we've all been saying, we're definitely going to be better, definitely going to be stronger after all of this. Are there any specific questions that, while we have Anthony and Ed and Mag on the call, that I'm going to give a couple more minutes, that if you have any specific questions, you can go ahead and submit them to the Q&A section. Otherwise, we're going to get ready to wrap up here in a few moments. Ed, there was a question that was posted, Ed, I said, that was sent a couple of weeks ago that they just said arrangements and band roles. So it was like two separate topics that they would like to have addressed. Was one on arrangements and then one on band roles. I'm guessing that's like band roles and responsibilities maybe. So can you maybe talk just a little bit about band roles and what that looks like?
Sure. I mentioned earlier that the way I lead the band at the River is not from a dictatorship standpoint at all, but I make sure everybody brings something to the table and make sure that everybody's voice is heard and valued, because that's how we grow together. It's our band. So I want to make sure everybody has input. And at the same time, I want to make sure people, I don't want, we don't want the bass player playing guitar lines all the way. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody has a space that they have to fit in. And when everybody fits in and plays the position the right way, it allows for us to be free and being able to minister the way we do so much more easily, because everybody understands the place where they're expected to kind of be. And that's kind of like a conversation you have to have. I feel like that's a question that's interpreted the asker, the questioner may have had someone in their band that plays all over the place all the time, or isn't as disciplined in playing the pocket as they would like. And for us, it just comes down to being able to have that conversation, being open enough and approachable enough to have that conversation without people taking it personally. And the way I've been able to kind of navigate that is by building relationships with them outside of band. So they know when I say something, it's not something that I'm trying to attack you. It's something that, hey, we're trying to build together. I need to know, kind of how you feel and what your approach is, how you're thinking about this, so that we can move together, So, that for me, that kind of is the band role for me. Bass plays bass, and drums play drums. Keep time. We have the loops. We have a computer that plays loops, but at the same time, don't play all up and down over the situation. In a band situation, I've been taught that less is more. I don't have to do as much stuff because I don't have to, because we have like our band, we have 6 players. So I don't have to do everything, you know, and nor do I even try. Like, we all fit together when we all understand, like, all right, let's build this together because we're all going to shine together as a band in support of the worship leaders and the singers who are carrying the message forth. And we want to make sure that we're not doing anything that draws attention away from, you know, the message that's being put forth, you know, making sure that we're out of the way.
That's good. And I feel the same way about understanding band roles and just making sure that everyone knows what is expected. And it goes back to having that conversation. The other part of that was arrangements. Can you speak to just a little bit about if you have a song that you would like for your congregation to sing, but maybe you need to change the feel of the song to go more with your audience. But what space are you in when you start looking at being creative within those arrangements, like changing the arrangements of songs?
Okay, so we always use the record that we're learning as the template. So that's where we start. So let me say this outright. Don't change it until you learn the right way first, until you learn the record first. Because you can't, like, when we're changing things and we're adding new stuff or swapping out stuff, it's because we've learned the song and interpreted it a certain way, and now we want to kind of reinterpret certain parts. But you can't interpret something until you learn the language. You know what I mean? And so learn the record and know where the baseline is first. Like, know what the original situation is. Know where you're starting from before you can move around. Then it becomes just a matter of working with your worship leader and understanding the house that you're in. So like if the house that you're in is a little more traditional, where they like more hymns, like, then trying to be able to infuse certain things into those songs, or maybe change the feel. So if it's a CCM song by Michael W. Smith, then maybe try to move it a little bit more, not gospel-y, but add a little more flavor to it with, you know, maybe changing a chord here or there, or changing the order of something. You know, things like that. I also believe in, you know, arrangement musically for us is a matter of having fun. Like, music, like for us, music and playing is never supposed to be boring, and it's not supposed to feel restrictive. Like, we all exist in the space, but we have fun in that space because that's our area of it. That's how we minister, you know, to God. That's how we're talking to God at the same time as other people are engaged in lifting their hands and singing. Like, most times we're not singing. We're fully engaged in what we're playing. So, you know, creating that space and allowing that space for us to be able to, you know, change things here and there. A lot of that comes with just having that space to interpret the music. I always one of the prayers that I always pray when we start our band rehearsals, God, help us to not just memorize, but internalize the music so that it ministers to us first, and then we can minister it to your people. Why do I say that? Because I don't want to memorize something to regurgitate it, because then I'm not interpreting it, and then I'm gonna play it bored. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be bored when I play it. But help me to internalize it, which means it gets all the way in me, and now it ministers to me, so that when I play it, I put all of the emotion and the feeling of the ministry taking place behind that. And then that's where it leads to us being able to, you know, be creative and change things and flow together. Because as we've built those relationships and gelled within the band, you know, sometimes it's not even a written thing. Like, most of our arrangements of songs that we've done or that we do, is not stuff that we wrote. It's just stuff that happened, and then we liked it, and so we kept it. You know what I mean? But it happened because we were having that conversation and being able to minister together corporately, and then it kind of stuck from there. But I would definitely say know your band, know your congregation, know who you're ministering to, like the people that are going to be engaged with you, because that really will have an effect on how you're able to maneuver and how you're able to interpret the music that you're trying to minister.
If I could, I want to touch base on what Ed said about knowing the actual, having the song, knowing the song, like the base of the song, the foundation, because you don't want to end up on Church of Laugh. Okay, you don't want your worship leader to look in the back at you like, what song is this? The whole beat has changed. It went from 4/4 to 6 to 3/4, and there's no intro, or the intro is so long that you're like, well, wait. And it just goes, because I promise you, Ed and those, they do such an amazing job with the transitions, and also just communicating their they do a really great job of communicating their arrangements, and it flows so well. But I think it's mainly, it pieces together. You just taught me something. It is because you all learn the foundation of the music first, and that just takes you a long way. Because if you go in trying to change it up to this is CCM right now, but I want to make it a little more ethnic. So I want to do, and it's how great is our God, and it's like, well, wait, huh? It can work, but you got to make sure that the communication is cool and that you really learn the music first.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I have this philosophy every time we do a worship leader summit somewhere, and if you ever sit in one of the classes or clinics that I teach, I have my 3 rules of musicianship. Is number 1, we're the band, we're going to be all together. Number 2, we're going to be musical, and number 3, we're not going to get in the way. Can't get in the way of what's going on. Don't draw any attention away from what's going on. So everything we do, we're going to be together with it. If we're going to change something, then we're all going to change. You know what I mean? Let's not just be leaving people out and doing their own thing. Number 2, it's got to be musical. We're not just going to be banging and clashing notes and stuff. We're, as a band, we're in a skilled position. There's a very small number of people in the congregation in that church that get, the privilege of being able to minister in this particular way. And so that's how we treat it. We're going to treat it like it's a precious thing, like it's a skilled thing. So we're going to be together, we're going to be musical, and then we're not going to get in the way. So none of the arrangements we do, like Anthony was saying, we're not going to make up any crazy, outrageous, outlandish intros or outros or things of that nature, because it doesn't call for that. You know what I mean? Now we've taken the attention off of worshiping God to, oh my God, what did he play? I don't care. You know what I mean? There's a time and a space for that. And praise and worship in church is not the time or the place or the space, Bingo. So you got to be sensitive to what's happening. And that guides all arrangement decisions. Sometimes we're making decisions on the fly because I hear something, but when I hear something different and we need to change, I'll communicate it with the band. Or sometimes it's funny because our drummer, Jalen, has a talkback mic inside the drum cage with him. And sometimes he hears something and he'll call it out and we'll change. We can move together, but we're moving together. We're making sure we're keeping it musical, but we're not going to do anything to get in the way, So that way we can continue to build it and let the worship go higher,
That's amazing. That's how that happens.
Yeah, most of that stuff we didn't write that. We were having a moment, and y'all got to enjoy the benefits of us having a moment together. That's what happens.
That's great. I love that you said you talk about it being having conversations with each other. Yeah, musical conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, I didn't see any questions coming through, which that's cool because that means that you guys are doing a great job at what the information that you're sharing. So before we end, though, Mag, Ed, Anthony, is there anything else that you would like to add? Maybe something you thought of, you thought, I should have said X, Y, and Z before you go.
Did want to leave if there are people with the questions because there's a couple Facebook groups that I'm in to where not everybody is where we think they are. Like if we're driving a Ferrari, then we assume everybody else should drive a Ferrari. But there's a lot of people around the world that really don't have any understanding of streaming, and this is their first time really getting into it. And they've posted, "Oh my goodness, my house mix sounds good, but my streaming mix sounds horrible. How do you help me fix that?" And there's a couple resources. A lot of it's going to be a lot of you learning with it. However, you want to make sure that your output is at least negative 11 dB coming out, because when it's lower, like if you're negative 22, it's going to be a really difficult time hearing anything that's going on. So negative 11 dB on your output is where you want to aim to be. Once you get more comfortable with that, you can kind of fudge some things and maybe saturate or kind of really start compressing things and make it louder. You also want to invest in licensing. Now, here's that thing that a lot of people like to overlook, and they're like, I get to it if I get to it, when I get to it. Now, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. You will get hit with fines, especially with this newer music. For the past 3 to 5 years, performers, producers have really been complaining about music being streamed for free. They've really been complaining about it between ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. Everybody that's a creator. They've been complaining about it. So they've been cracking down on finding people streaming and stealing. And like Napster started it all. To me, it's like to a certain degree, your music is going to get pirated in some way. But with newer music especially, please don't. You can stream and you can get away with it. That doesn't mean that it's good for you, just like not wearing your seatbelt. You may live 1,000 trips, but 1,001 would really be costly. You know what I mean? So look at was it CCLI? Look at any licensing that gives you the right to stream and broadcast that music again, because that's an investment and it's far less than your fee's going to be. Get yourself also, the next point is get yourself a good mic. So one thing I hate to hear is really airy, difficult to hear sound when you've got, now all things considered, if that's the best you can do, all for it. But if you got 3 people there, 4 people, and it sounds really far away, it's hard to hear, just get you a nice hardwired lapel mic, or you can use, I believe it's iRig. It's a little adapter. You can put an XLR mic into your iPad, your iPhone, any phone, and make it the audio quality a lot better. Last thing is join CSMT and Behind the Mixer on Facebook if you're into. There's a lot of worship leaders and pastors on there that have nothing to do with AV, but it's a nice sounding board for you to throw ideas at. Church Sound and Media Text is CSMT. Behind the Mixer is another group that you want to check out, and you can ask questions in there, and there's thousands of people from around the world that always give you an answer.
Mag, if you can post those inside the chat
Yep.
chat group, that'd be great. There was a question that came through, and I'm not sure if you answered it. I think you did, but let me just ask it really quick. It says, for sound, when setting high, mid, and low ranges, is there a safe range that you should keep the vocalist and band members in?
So that's a little difficult to dissect there because it's a lot in that. Is there a range when we're
Is
talking
there a
about
safe range that you should keep the vocalist and the band members in when setting high, mid, and low ranges?
There's so much there. So I'll try my best to segment some of that. Some of that is gain staging, right? Or it could be. I'm not sure exactly where you're at in the whole chain of setting levels, but gain staging, red is dead. You don't want to clip. You don't want to go into red. There's a lot of people from really, really, really old school who used to have to slam their preamps on their analog boards, and they'll tell you, no, you got to saturate it. It's not going to sound good until you hit red. Don't go red. Red is dead, even with analog boards today. Stay about a negative 11 dB on your output if you're streaming. Coming in, you want as much signal as you can get without, and I'm going to say this lightly, getting to feedback, because without somebody there who's done it before, it's kind of tricky to get you there just by telling you. but you want to set it to where it sounds comfortable, and reference, if you can, record it, reference your mix at home on your car. That's kind of what we did in the studios. We'd always listen on like 3 different sets of monitors within the studio. Then we take it in the car. That's really when you're
It's
going to grow
flames.
with your mix. Setting your levels high, mid, low. There's so much within high, mid, low because I can, for the most part, I go high, um, high mids, low mids. Like there's a lot in there,
It's
but
a
you
big
want,
monster.
yeah, you want good gain staging, and then you want to make sure your output is at least negative 11 dB, and you don't want feedback. Or if you're just doing a broadcast mix, you can get your signal as hot as you can get it without clipping.
Okay.
Can I piggyback in there? Uh, Man, setting your levels for EQ and stuff like that, high, mids, and lows, and all of that is so subjective because it's based on the person that's mixing. It's based on their ears, and it's based on the speakers that you have and all those different things. But what I like to tell people when they're mixing and when they're learning how to mix is that um, you listen to a lot of things and you reference the stuff that you've heard. So for instance, if I'm in a church that's heavy gospel, right? If I go listen to a CD of heavy gospel, I would want my church sound to sound somewhere similar to that. Does that make sense? So that it kind of you're kind of trying to emulate the stuff that you've already been listening to, and you treat the mix as if it's like, don't treat it like a bunch of individual elements, even though it is, because at the end of the day, everything has to fit together to be one mix of sound. Like, I'm sure Mag can tell people, like, if you hear one thing over another thing, it's probably too loud or too soft. Something has to adjust. You know what I mean? So when it comes to setting the levels, like, you want to make sure stuff is comfortable, but at the same time, you want to make sure, like, the most important part of a mix is the blend. It's not necessarily the volume, you know? Like, if it's not blending well together and it doesn't sound like it's blending well together, then your mix needs to be adjusted. So being able to set those high mids and those lows, like, there's a lot of technical stuff to it. Like, there's a lot of technique to it, but at the end of the day, like, you're trying to do what's comfortable, but you're also trying to make sure that you're having a cohesive sound. And that just takes working with your AV tech, working with your sound guy, and finding out, all right, what's gonna sound good as far as this EQ, or what's gonna sound the best, or how can we even this out? How can we,
Yeah.
make that stuff work together?
Yeah. And we just need to bring some clarity to what you were talking about as far as licensing. And Anthony, you can probably speak to this too. She says, I'm a worship leader leading a small church, but growing church. We do not currently have any musicians, and we use soundtracks and instrumentals. Most come from YouTube, while others I have purchased from musicians' arrangements. Are you saying that this is illegal? So using tracks basically from YouTube, is that illegal without having that licensing to do so?
I can chime in a little bit and let you guys write it out. So the general understanding is you can perform in your church that music, but as soon as you start streaming it, you become a broadcaster. You are broadcasting that music again, and that's when everything changes. So if you've already purchased a license, like per track in a sense, and you've got that official permission to rebroadcast, go ahead. But if you're just taking music from YouTube and only doing it within your church and not streaming it, you're in the clear. You can perform the music without license.
Anthony, can you talk a little bit about CCLI?
Yeah. So CCLI is the Christian Copyright Licensing International. So what it mainly covers, it gives you the permission to use lyrics in your church, to post their lyrics on your screens, and from my understanding, it's mainly just your lyrics, because playing the music playing music on stream will get you kind of dinged. So prime example, one thing that we've ran into before our service would start, we would open the stream up before LaRue and everyone gets started. We'll open the stream up, but we might be playing something from Anthony Brown, or we might be playing some. We've played LaRue Howard's album, and LaRue dinged us. We had a copyright claim. I was like, LaRue, can you tell your people, please let them know that you gave us permission? But I mean, I'm just saying that to say that they really do take it seriously. You know, when you're playing music over a stream, it's really kind of, I don't know if they figured out a way to get around that yet.
Yeah,
Just not getting caught, or just
So there was a message that says Multitracks has issued a temporary gratis license during this time to cover streaming using tracks, but they have said that you will still need CCLI. So while Multitracks has allowed, a temporary licensing for people to stream the tracks that they have, you'll still need to make sure that you have an account with CCLI.
Yeah, which you do pay for. The church pays for it. It's a nice little buck, but it supports our artists. You know, it supports the artists, because when we do CCLI and we pay for it, there comes a time, there might be a quarter, they might email me and say, hey, can you report from March to the end of August all of the songs that you sing? So we go through and we put in those reports, and we report it, send it to them, and if I'm assuming they cut checks and they send it out to the artists, whatever churches, all of those churches that are reporting at the time.
Yeah, and they do it based upon churches that are your size, or
Right.
Within that same demographic and the size of that church. And then there is a link that someone shared in here, a blog, why your church needs a streaming license. So that's a really great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and then
that one, I just
came
across
Josh.
those
Okay,
guys.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They actually talk about CCLI and the printed kind of limit that they have, and this group covers more than that. They're a little more expensive, of course, but they cover more of the. They've got one for just broadcast and one for streaming, and I forget how they separate it, but they're all inclusive there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that is true, because you do know that we're not technically allowed to print out their music, the lyrics, but CCLI also covers that.
But CCLI covers all of that.
CCLI covers all of that, but some people, it's like, well,
but they don't know. But now those of us that are on this call, we know. So now
I'm so sorry.
Hey, listen, you're accountable for what you know. Definitely.
But,
what was you gonna say, Anthony?
I was gonna say, think about, and this is even true for when you're in school. Think about all the times that your music teacher has printed and made copies of the music and be like, here, put it in your folder.
Ooh.
This is why they are so angry. The artists, they're like, listen, I'm sorry. All right, I'm be quiet at least. I'm be quiet.
This is why. Oh, yes.
I
think that's funny, because she is a music teacher. She don't be snitching.
We have